Today's episode, we're going to be going over pretty much how do you take care of yourself emotionally, mentally, physically. I guess financially, we can touch on that, like if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll just dive right in.
Here at Revision Marketing Group, our team of young professionals get it. Created with youth in mind, we strive to educate, inspire, and promote authentic creativity across all job fields. This is Young Creatives.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have two members from the Revision team, me, Christian, and then we also have our newest hire, Sarah Haines. She is our new marketing coordinator. How are you, Sarah?
Doing pretty good.
Are you excited about today's episode?
Yes, first time ever.
Yeah.
Pretty excited.
You're definitely going to knock it out of the park. So how do you feel like you take care of yourself?
Well, just like day to day, I definitely have a routine. And I think that's really one of the things that's like kept me going when it comes to taking care of myself is like no matter how I'm feeling, I'm like, I need to do these like 5 things today.
Yeah.
And so like writing them down ahead of time definitely helps. But just pretty much moving throughout the day, like exercising at some point, whether it's like actually running or yoga or just like going on a walk, it kind of keeps me where I'm not distracted by my phone, distracted by all these other things.
Yeah.
So
I think that you said something about routine. I think that's really good because for a while when I didn't have a routine, I was like, my life is all over the place. It was just chaotic. And it was easy for me to like, I guess like get down on myself because I wasn't doing anything that I felt was super productive. But when you said writing stuff down, that has helped me a lot. So within the past, I guess like month, I've been super busy. And so my phone, between my phone, my Google, like, what is it? Google, what do we use? Calendar.
Oh yeah.
And then
I was like,
reminders on my
which
phone. We do have a lot of
Yeah.
systems. And then the reminders on my phone, it's like, okay, well, it's like helping me like create a routine because at the beginning of the year, it was like, I want to start all this stuff, but then there was no like organization or like, I didn't know like what I should do first but now I'm getting a hang of it. So I think that's like helped me be proactive, I guess, when it comes to like getting a kickstart on health. Is that like a part of your health?
Yeah,
Of your
yeah,
routine?
definitely. Because it's like once I'm feeling, I think underline, once somebody is confident in themselves and they treat themselves kindly, that totally reflects on how they treat other people.
So to you, what does it mean to like take care of yourself, or why is it important?
Well, it's like mental health is about the environment you're in a lot of the time.
Right.
So it's if you put yourself in a good headspace, that's part of your environment too, like how you see everything. Just like when I'm feeling really insecure, like I find myself reading into what other people say and how they interact with me. Like I immediately am like, oh, they are criticizing me instead of it being constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Like they're just straight up like, they don't like me. And it's because I'm thinking back, it's because I lack this, this, and this, all the things I'm already insecure about. And so it just definitely reflects for me.
And having a routine has helped you get out of those spaces in life.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, again, going back to taking care of yourself is kindness, and then also like just making yourself feel good. We know what like science too with running and moving your body. To me, like that's the first thing I do pretty much when I wake up. Like I've gone through times, especially like this past year, where I've been just slowly kind of building up my confidence to finally actually like do something like this, which is get a new job.
Yeah.
And to me, that's been kind of my goal like the last few years. I know, but it's just been such a mental break. Like I think just environment I was raised in, like all these things leading up to like this last month has been me just slowly being like, take care of yourself. Like don't assume things about situations you know nothing about because you're insecure. Like I'm always thinking, oh, well, you know, I'm not what they're looking for. I can't fulfill these roles.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's always on the assumption of just like, I think I know how something's going to be. And it's like, you're not even in that situation yet, which is why you're scared. It's like this weird circle.
Yeah. That you'll constantly live in until you just decide to like, I guess, have faith and then step out on that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like running and doing yoga. And is that something you've always been into?
No, well, okay, so in high school, I was homeschooled. So my dad started like a little homeschool track team. So
Okay.
I did that my senior year. It was a little bit later on in the game. And then after that, I started just running kind of recreationally, just like trying to make myself feel good. And I really hated it. I thought it was
I hate running.
terrible. I had bad running shoes. I think that
Yeah.
was part of it. Like I would get hurt all the time. Like I just was always in pain. And I was just like, I just don't think my body's meant to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that I just felt really insecure even about running. Like I would feel anxious before I'd go out and run, even though I was just running by myself. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't like I was trying to perform for anyone, but I just felt inadequate.
So defeated before you even started.
Yeah, exactly. And it again goes back to the mind games and like how you see yourself, I think too. But I don't know. Running is a lot about mental like breakthroughs.
Yeah, my mom is like really big into fitness, and so that's something that she always says is don't really focus on like what's ahead of you. Like think about like what you've already accomplished as far as like even like with running. So like if you have to run a mile, like don't think like I have to run like another half mile. Like think about like the half mile you've already like finished, and like that really helps. It hasn't really helped me with my running, but I'm like, I mean, I guess in a sense it has, but yeah, like that's some advice that she always gives. Like, do you have any advice that you would give as far as like specifically when it comes to running?
What I used to do is I would say kind of the idea of what your mom was saying, where it's, you know, you kind of think back, okay, well, I've already gone this far. I can go more.
Yeah.
And along those lines, I would say, yeah, I can make it to that lamppost over there, but then I'm done. Like I can just stop after that.
Yeah.
And it was almost if I knew I wasn't going to stop, but I just told myself, just get over there. And then I would get there and be like, I can do another lamppost. And so I kind of just built up from that, and it would get further and further, you know, every time.
So it literally is a mind thing.
Yeah, I think so. You are probably going to be in pain for, not intense pain, but uncomfortability.
Yeah.
You know, during most of your run.
Yeah.
And that's just because obviously your body and muscles are moving and working hard. And so I think that it's realizing that pain is part of the process and that it can actually feel good in a way because it is an accomplishment. And so to me, it was just kind of like push a little bit more every time. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that definitely helps me build up my endurance. And then from endurance comes like, you know, getting faster or having a certain goal in mind.
How do you feel like someone, or how have you been able to like become more consistent in like your journey of working out, I will say?
Well, I've gone through phases, like ever since high school. Graduating high school, it's been like 6 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I know. So long. I've been through phases where I've not ran, you know, and kind of tried some other things, but I've always kind of come back to it. And I think it's just the idea that, like, I'm able to clear my head and it's something that I'm kind of familiar with. I think that the way I've been able to be consistent is just to remind myself that pain is part of it. Mm-hmm. And that the pain, there's a result to that. It's not like I'm physically putting myself through like torture, like, you know, getting like a bunch of piercings or I don't know, tattoos. I don't know. It's not like that kind of pain. Yeah. But it's like the idea that it's just pain is part of the process.
It's like purposeful pain.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that, purposeful pain.
It's just like you can't avoid it in life, you know, and it's like just like putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, like something new, like a new job or something like that, or even like going to a new school or something like that. It's just going to be, you're just going to have to make yourself be uncomfortable sometimes. Yeah. Because then you're able to practice and just get better.
So with that, I'm like in a bunch of like Facebook groups. And so one of them is like women that work out or want to start working out. And a question that a lot of the women ask all the time is like, how do I become motivated, or how do I stay motivated? Yeah. And like a lot of the conversation that happens after that question's asked is you're not always going to be motivated. That's why you have to have discipline. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it goes back to like, you know, pain is part of the process. And also I just know how good I feel after my runs. I know how good I feel throughout the day because I got up early and ran. And I think that's really that's thing
such a unique like thought process to me.
Yeah, it's just like the thing that I crave. Like I actually didn't run this morning because I wanted to sleep in a little bit longer. Yeah. And so I just did like yoga, but at the same time I kind of am feeling like I didn't move my body.
So you feel it now?
I kind of feel that like I don't feel as good, I feel like, as I usually do. Yeah. Sometimes I worry that I put a little too much pressure on that. I'm like, I don't think that like all of a sudden I'm fat today because I didn't run right. Like my muscles are deteriorating or something like that, or I've lost all my like endurance from not running one day. But it definitely is like, I think just because I've been so consistent like the last 6 months.
They say it takes 21 days to like form a habit. That's not true.
Longer.
It's not true because I remember I started doing like personal training last year for 3 weeks. And even after that, I was like, well, it was 4 months. Not 4 months. It was 4 weeks, so a month. But then even after that, I was like, I don't have to keep doing this. So I'm like, it definitely takes longer than 21 days. That sounds great. But after 21 days, it's like, no, it takes longer than that. But for me, at the beginning of the year, I said that I wanted to like start back working out because 2 or 3 years ago, I worked out a lot. I told you I worked at Orange Theory. So I worked out a lot. And then my family just like works out. And I think I know that was like an expectation because my mom does bodybuilding and then so does my older sister. Everybody's like, are you going to do it? And then me being me, I'm like, no. But it was literally because I wanted to do it. And I didn't want to do it in spite of them. And so I'm like, but that's really like causing havoc in your personal life. Like you're choosing like not to do anything active because you're like, you don't want to like fall in their shadows. If that makes sense. So that's something that I would battle with. So I stopped working out for a while and then I just started back. And that's what you were saying. It really does like affect your day. So right now I'm like going on my lunch break every like 3 days out of the week, I go on my lunch break to work out. And it really gives me something to look forward to. So in the morning, I'm like, when I'm getting ready for work, I'm like, okay, well, I know I have to work out today. So I'm like packing my bag to go work out. Like it just gives me something to look forward to. Mm-hmm. And then even after like coming back to work, I feel better because going into it, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to work. Some days it's like, oh my God, I have to work out. But then even after, you just kind of like feel like you've accomplished something, especially on the days when you like really just don't want to do it. You're doing it because like you've told yourself you're going to do it instead of when you like last week when I was like, do I want to go work out? And you were like, it's literally an hour of your day. So those days, I just feel like it feels so much better and it's worth so much more because you just really don't want to do it and you still push past like that feeling of not wanting to. Mm-hmm. And then I actually read like quite a bit, not as much now because I'm super busy, but I read. One of the books that I'm reading right now is Change Agent, or it's pretty much a self-help. I like to read self-help books. So it's pretty much a self-help book about this sports. Well, she's an attorney, but she's also a sports agent. And she's pretty much like giving you tips and practical tools that you can use to like ultimately have the success that you want to have like in your life. So I like reading a lot of books like that. And then I started meal prepping. I hate meal prepping. It's so much easier to like pick up food on the way home or like for lunch, but that's like a lot of money. So
oh my gosh, yeah.
It adds up really quickly. So that's something else that I've been like trying to do consistently because you could do it, but then like you fall off the bandwagon and then it's so easy to like stay off. So like really just like building the routine to do it consistently. I think that's the word. That's really the word, like routine, and then intentionally, because if you're not really doing it for the right reason, then it's so much easier to like give up on it. Yeah. Or burn out. Like even with working out, I feel like a lot of people, they work out because like they want to like look better, but then like that's not enough because like once you start to see those changes, you're going to stop. So if you don't have like a reason other than like your physical, then it's like you're going to stop any day now. So I think that's like really big as far as like taking care of yourself, like being intentional about like why you want to like see these results or like why you're doing what you're doing.
Or even remembering that like what is like reality versus expectation.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will work out because they want to look good, but then it turns out sometimes your body is just not meant to look a certain way.
Exactly.
You know, like I've had to come to that conclusion a lot myself, like going through a lot of like stuff with food and like having a bad relationship with food and then having a bad relationship with working out. And then finally kind of coming to that conclusion that although it's not bad to have goals, I think it is so much more about like being strong and healthy.
Started working out with my new like trainer, I guess. I walked in on the first day and I was so excited, and she was like, "Why are you so excited?" And I was like, "Well, aside from me drinking like C4 Energy, because you know those like get you pumped up, I just knew that like my reasoning for wanting to work out this time, rather than the other times, it was just very different. Like my mindset was different. So I think that really it does, a lot of it has to do with like being kind to yourself, which is the first thing that you said, because that in return like affects how you go into almost everything that you do in your life and the relationships that you have with other people. I meditate, which is, well, I try to. Meditation and prayer are like very similar to me. I think that just like focusing your breath and like spending time with your thoughts is super important. So that's another way. That's something else that I do to take care of myself.
Yeah. Especially a big part of like yoga for me too.
Yeah, just being mindful of like how you feel. I was telling someone maybe this weekend, I don't like not knowing like how I feel. Like if I'm put in a situation and like I'm uncertain of like how I feel about someone or like something, I don't want any part of it because I'm so aware of like myself and like how I feel. So when I get put in those situations, I'm like, and I'm uncomfortable, not just like being uncomfortable because I'm like shy or nervous, but like you make me feel uncertain. I want no parts of it. And so I think meditation and like prayer and just like spending time with yourself or even yoga, it just helps you focus and center your thoughts so that you're even more aware of like how you feel and like why you feel that way. And yeah, that's huge for me. That's really, really big for me. And then I also feel a difference when I'm not praying or meditating or kind of yoga. Because even at the place that I go to now where I'm working out, like you have to do certain, like it's like yoga at the very beginning. So like stretching. So stretching at the very beginning, like they do like certain poses, like yoga poses at the very beginning. So yeah, I'm trying to like, I'm incorporating all these new things in my life all at once. I'm like, that's why I'm crazy right now.
Maybe also it's just that you've been needing to do new things.
Yeah.
Maybe you've been feeling really stagnant. Like that's kind of how I've been feeling.
Yeah. Have you ever practiced like meditation, or is that like yoga for you?
I haven't like practice isn't just like done meditation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Usually it's at the beginning of the little yoga classes that I do. It's all on YouTube, so free.
Yeah.
Love it. I use they're called Boho Beautiful.
What's that?
It's just a YouTube channel.
On you, okay.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Okay.
But their name is Boho Beautiful, and they're really cool. It's like a couple that just does yoga stuff. But at the beginning, they always have like a few minutes of like getting your thoughts centered. And then whenever they have you in Shavasana at the end, when you're just laying down flat, then they have you like meditate a little bit more. Like you can stay longer if you want to.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
That's hard though. Like meditation's so hard because we live in like such a like fast paced, like busy, like consumer world, and our attention spans are so short. So even spending like 10 minutes with your own thoughts, it's like, okay, I gotta get up and do something. So like, and I think a big misconception with meditation is like you have to like focus your thoughts and not think about anything, but that's not the point of yoga.
Like think of nothingness, and everyone's like, you can't possibly think of nothingness.
I don't even think that's the point. Like
I don't think so at all.
You're supposed to like embrace your thoughts, like, or that's what I do at least. So I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but like I just embrace the thoughts that come to me, because once you do that, like then like you can clear your mind. But trying to like ignore stuff is only gonna like pick at you more, I think. Yeah, that's been my experience.
Definitely. Like the Boho Beautiful people, they give like a visual representation or visual scene, I guess, scenario, where it's like, you know, the thoughts come by, whether negative or positive, and you reach and you grab them, and then you look at it, examine it. Is this worthy of my time or emotion? And then you just let it go.
But at least acknowledge it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also the idea of you don't want to push away bad things. You don't want to always avoid pain at all costs.
Oh my gosh,
like that's such a big thing for me. Like I think that's why it's taken me so long to try to find another job.
Yeah,
because I just was trying to make myself as comfortable as possible. And that also goes along the lines of being stagnant, doing the same thing every day, even doing the same thing that doesn't make me feel good every day.
Yeah.
You know?
I actually just had that conversation too. I clearly was just talking about this.
I actually just talked to my friend about all these things yesterday.
Yeah.
Pretty much too.
I was just talking about that yesterday as far as like, I remember I was going through like a really bad breakup at one point, like my very first breakup. And I just like kept like waking up like crying. And my mom would like give me like, she would talk to me, but she would give me like different books to read. And like, I wasn't reading them. I was like 17. But I remember one day she said to me, you're going to keep like having the same issue because like you don't want to like deal with the pain. Like you want to like, I just kept accepting like mediocre. And she was like, you keep accepting and going back to the situation because like you don't want to feel the pain, but that's literally the healing part. Like the healing comes from the pain. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, that's like really powerful. And I like apply that to my daily life. Well, I try to like keep that and like apply that to my life now. So I was just telling one of my friends yesterday, the same thing my mom told me when I was 17. You're doing that because you don't want to deal with pain. And it's funny because he looked at me and he was like, no, that's true. Like that's actually very true. And I think it's interesting that you just said that because I feel like that's the reality for a lot of people, like just doing something over and over and over again when you know it's not good for you, but you'd much rather feel like that than actually go through, like do the hard work and like get to the healing part of whatever it is that you're going through because it's so uncomfortable. And being stagnant and like living in a state where like you know what it's going to be, like it's so comfortable. It's comforting. That's distorted. Because you know that it's bad for you. It's like not good for you at all, but you'd much rather stay in that situation because you're comfortable there. Like, you know, like what it's going to be, like what it looks like. And that's really, really distorted in a way. Not like that sounds bad, but it's strange to think about.
I think a lot of the time that we live that out through relationships.
Yeah.
I think typically it's somebody just being really comfortable, the other person not putting enough effort, but then at the same time, it's like you don't want to be with them, but at the same time, they give you that comfort, like they know you, like, you know, like you'll have to start over with someone new and like open up to another person and have to trust another person.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to not.
It's just about the emotions at the moment.
Yeah.
We're so focused on like, how do I feel right now versus like, and just like, again, I was talking to my friend about this yesterday too. She and I were talking about our boyfriends, and we were just saying that sometimes we think like we don't want to react to things right away because we are both at the age where we're thinking about long term and not necessarily like, oh, marriage, but it's just long term in the idea of I want this person to always have good feelings about me. And so if I say something hurtful now, even if I ask forgiveness for it,
they'll have to live with what I said.
And they may never forget that, even if they forgive me.
Yeah.
There's some things, obviously, like your parents say to you that, you know, whether or not they meant it in that way.
It lives with you.
You know, and it even sometimes becomes who you think you are.
Yeah, I feel like you're very, like, intentional with the way that you choose to live your life, and you're, like, self-aware. And I feel like at this age, you don't really get that often. Like a lot of the times I'm like, you have no idea that you are this way, do you? And I just sit back and I'm like, and I just watch and I'm like, this is crazy. Like you really think that it's this person's fault, or you think it's this person. And I'm like, really? You're okay. Well, that's like, that is, I don't know. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Well, it's like whenever you're around people that are like so accepting of bad behavior, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I never would have thought this was okay. Like,
yeah. And it is. I think it's becoming, like, the norm or accepted. I feel like it's just most things are just accepted instead of, like, no, like, that's not right. Yeah. So.
And that has to do a lot with, like, social circles and, like, who your friends are and, like, can they accept criticism, you know, or are they so, like, insecure in themselves that everything like, anything people say to them, they're going to take offense at and, like, just be, like, turn it around and gaslight
and they're a victim.
Something.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's so exciting for me. Like, super exciting for me.
Well, I kind of feel the same way about you. You definitely seem like you are getting to the point where you're like, okay, I want to take care of myself like this, this, and this. And that, to me, is very, very intentional.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a build-up for me.
And I could say the same for myself. Like,
and even like a week and I'm like, ooh, and then I'm back to it, you know?
Yeah. And that's something else. This weekend, terrible. Like not necessarily, not like terrible, but I was saying that I wasn't, because I prepped my meals. But Friday, when the snowstorm hit, I was like, I'm going to have pizza. So I ordered pizza, and then I think yesterday I ate out again, but I said I was only going to eat out once, and I ate out twice. And so even this morning, I was like, it's fine. It's a new week. Like, I messed up last week, but I'll do better this week. And that's like such a game changer, like giving yourself grace, which we also have a podcast on that as well. But just knowing that you're going to mess up sometimes, but just like getting back on track, I feel like is a really big part of like taking care of yourself. Not like, you should have goals for yourself, but then you're not going to always hit those goals because life happens. So just like getting back up and like starting where you left off instead of like just beating yourself up and then you have to start all the way over. Because that's what I would do for a long time. I would say, okay, well, I'm going to eat clean, and then I would like eat chicken, and then it's like, okay, well, I guess I got to start well, I did bad this one time, so I messed up all this work. I might as well just keep eating bad. It's like, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, like, I genuinely did not understand that. And it wasn't until maybe a few months ago, maybe I would say a month ago, that I was like, okay, well, if you mess up, just get back up and then start where you left off instead of making it harder for yourself. Because ultimately that's what you're doing. You're making it harder for yourself. So,
well, I think also if it's along the lines of like, I messed up or I failed, it's so much easier to just be like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't. And then from there, it's easier to give up. But it's also like realizing that it's like, again, taking that cloud and then like letting it go idea of like, oh, I did want to do this week. All right, it'll just be this week's goal. You know? And it's also like, I didn't mess up because I didn't reach my goal. I just didn't push hard. I didn't not push hard enough, but I just didn't quite reach it. It'll just be future, looking at the future.
No, that's so this year I didn't write down New Year's resolutions, but I did something different, because people always say, and I believe this, that like you are what you consume. So is that, if that's like food, TV, music, like you become like what you are listening to.
Oh yeah.
So instead of like, and I usually don't even make New Year's resolutions because I know that I won't ever stick with them. But this year I was like very intentional and I did something different. So I recorded myself like talking out loud to myself, like saying what I wanted out of the year for me. And so now I just listen to it constantly, because if you're listening to what you can become what you want to become. Like if you can apply if you become what am I trying to say? If you become what you consume, listening to like other people, you can apply that same thing to your life and speak like positively to yourself. So that was pretty much my whole mindset when I decided to record myself talking to myself. But I listened to it constantly, and something that I said was, pretty much, I think a lot of the times I felt like when hard times would happen, or whenever I would just go through like struggles, I would get upset, and then, obviously, like that's to be expected. But even I corrected myself in the recording, because I said, I'm not gonna or what did I say? I always try to quote stuff and then I mess it up.
Like not let yourself get hurt or something?
Or it was something like that, but then I had to correct myself in the middle of me talking, because I'm like, no, stuff like that happens. You just can't stay there. Like you're going to get discouraged. You can't live there. You're going to
experience pain.
You just can't live there. So there were just like all these things that I was like, I'm not going to let this, and this happen. Then I'm like, that's not even real. And I feel like that's like a mindset like that people have. It's like, oh, I'm not going to do this, and this. And it's like, no, you probably will, but you can't live there. Like you can't allow yourself to like live in those states because it happens. So that's the point that I was trying to make, because that was something that I had to tell myself just at the beginning of this year. Like, no, it's going to happen, and it's okay when it happens, but don't live there. Like continue to strive for whatever it is that you're like trying to get. So always keeping that in mind as well. And then next, I think the next one was, what are some of the ways that you cope when you feel like you are like really just beating yourself up and like down on yourself, and like, how do you shake back from that?
Well, I feel like I am, what is it called whenever you like draw energy from being around people, and then, you know what I'm talking about? Being, or if you draw energy from being by yourself. It's like the different personalities.
Introvert, extrovert?
Yes. I feel like
Okay.
I'm just stuck in the middle.
Me too.
Sometimes I'm like, I want to be around fresh energy, like new people.
Yeah.
I don't want to like have to talk about my problems right now. I just want to like see random people and just feel like maybe even pretend I'm somebody else in a way, just for the night. You know, just like don't have to worry about my problems tonight. I'm just going to have fun.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like you need that mental break if you've been overthinking all day or all week or whatever it is about a certain situation. And that's how I would cope from some like anxiety. And then sometimes I also know I need to be creative. I need to be away from people. I need to be by myself and do the things that make me feel good.
Yeah.
But I think that the main thing for me is sticking to my schedule that helps me cope. I do need time and space to like figure out how to react to a certain situation. So I don't know. I guess it's time. I need time.
Yeah.
And I need patience with myself. And then also trying to stick to my routine. But at the same time, making sure I'm not guilty if I get off my routine.
Yeah.
Because going back to I didn't mess up. I just got busy and life happens.
Yeah.
And that's to be expected. You know, instead of my expectations being that I'm this perfect person that can't mess up or fail or even look a certain way.
Yeah. I thought, what did you say just now? That was just, you said.
Like the part about being around people or?
Yeah, even recognizing that, like recognizing when, being able to recognize like how you feel. So you said sometimes like, you know, like you want to be around people because like you overthink and like you need a mental break. And then other times, you know, that like you just need to like be by yourself and just create because that also helps you. Being able to recognize that is super important, I feel too, because for a while I just was either just hanging out way too much and like not being there for myself enough. So I was giving more of myself to like be around other people than I was like actually doing stuff to like work on me. Or it was like the complete opposite. Like I was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum and I didn't want to be around anybody. And that wasn't healthy either. So like having like that fine balance of, okay, well, I know during these moments that I want to be around people. And then during these moments, I know I want to spend more time like within myself to better or help or just like self-help, because a lot of the times like we want to look for other people to like help or fix our problems or talk to them about our problems and not realizing like really we have the answers already. A lot of the times we have not all the time, but I feel like a lot of the times like we have the answers to the questions that we're asking. We just kind of want like pity or sympathy, or like we just want to talk about it even more.
Or a way out.
Yeah.
When you know what the right thing is.
Yeah.
It's like, please give me an excuse to not have to do this because it's going to make me uncomfortable. But I think it kind of goes back to the whole filming yourself on a video. Like, I think that's such a great idea because nobody can change you but you. You know, I mean, there's situations, but you know what I mean?
For the most part,
Generally,
yeah.
For the most part, like how you see yourself and how you see other people, that's up to you.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're the one telling yourself these things instead of it being, I don't know, somebody else, I guess, telling you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like that idea a lot of, you know, you're the one that has to change. Just like us giving up control of, like, I need to change this person.
Yeah.
Or, like, oh, they're not living their life. Like, if they would just do this, their life would be so much better. I don't know. It's just a lot of that is giving up control and to just kind of focus on what am I doing to make myself feel complete, like I'm doing something with my life. I guess that's just always been my ultimate goal, is to feel like I'm fulfilled and also that I'm contributing to the people around me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I feel like I'm like talking to myself in the mirror by talking to you. So what are some moments in your life, or what do you feel like causes stress for you in your life?
I mean, I feel like a lot of things. I mean, I definitely have had bad social anxiety. A lot of that came from being homeschooled.
Yeah.
But pretty bad social anxiety. And then finally when I was junior at LSUS, I actually met a girl. Her name is Jessie. And she brought me to Minnesota, and it's a venue downtown. I don't know if you've ever been there before. It's really awesome. We should.
I've never
go.
heard of it. Yeah, I've never
Actually,
even heard
I'm
of
having
it.
an art show there on the 25th. Well, not just me.
I'm like, I'll be there.
I'll just have a couple things out there.
Okay.
yeah. It's gonna be fun. It's also a music show.
Okay.
But anyway, so I met the owner, David Nelson, and ever since then, I don't know. I just started putting myself in situations where I was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it would be like, I would just go in by myself. Most of the time there wasn't anybody free to go with me.
Yeah.
I really didn't have that many friends at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just me going, and I would pretty much just hang out with David, but I eventually just started meeting people and becoming really, really comfortable. And then it got to the point where it felt like almost a second home for me.
Yeah.
And I think that built so much of my confidence, like just being able to interact with people. I was like, oh, I am normal. Like I can be normal.
Yeah.
You know, like I can be the confident one in the room. I can be the one that walks in and is like, this is my business.
Yeah.
Like every time I'm feeling like really insecure when I walk into a place or just like walk into a social situation, it's not that I'm like acting like I'm ordering people around, but I kind of get into this character where I'm like, I'm the business owner of this place. I better be doing your job. Like, I don't know. It just makes me feel so confident. And then from there, when it comes to like social situations, but I have a lot of anxiety when it comes to my family too. So it's because I was, my parents were so religious, I think too, that had a lot to do with me confusing my relationship and my spirituality based off of what they thought of me.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, well, would they do that? Okay, well, that's actually right and wrong. Not exactly what God is like trying to tell me right now.
Yeah.
And so that was really confusing to me for a while, and still is really. It's something that I struggle a lot with, like morally, when I'm thinking about like what I'm doing. Like even in a situation, I'm like, oh, what would my parents say about this?
Yeah.
Not even like really what would they do? It would be what would they say I'm doing wrong in this situation, or what would they say I'm doing right? It's a little overpowering sometimes, but it's really getting past that mental state of like, they're going to love me no matter what. But also that, they're not God.
Yeah.
Like that is something that's been really hard for me. But I think that's where a lot of my anxieties come from, like social interactions, and then also like because how they view me, then it's like how I view myself. It's like, am I a good person? Am I living my life right? Am I wasting my life? And I think that's been a lot of my anxieties the last few years. I mean, really since I was a kid, but been really bad since getting out of school, because then it's like, when are you going to get that job, Sarah?
Yeah.
It's like, when are you going to stop wasting? And not to say they put so much pressure on me. A lot of it's in my head.
Yeah.
It's me interpreting because I'm already insecure about how they view me.
Yeah.
And so,
that's powerful that you even like, I'm saying it's like the fact that you're even able to recognize these things. I think that's why it's so much more impressive and powerful, because again, like that's hard to say it's me, not them. Like it's all me putting these like unrealistic or like these expectations that they don't have on me. That's interesting. I think so. Kudos to you about that. And I would have never recognized that you struggle with social anxiety, because you've just been in here like on 100. So
yeah, it's a lot getting to this point. I was thinking like before the job interview, it was the first interview I went on, and actually I didn't go on another one after that. I was actually planning on it, but I was just like, you know what? I just want to be here. Yeah. But before I came in, I was like, why am I not super anxious? And then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, I'm going to throw up. And then I was like, you know what? It is not about it is about whether or not I'm good for this job. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I'm any different. Yeah. It's maybe that they need somebody who does this, this, and this. Yeah. And it's not about me. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't go look for another job after this. Yeah. It's not that I should just give up and be like, oh, well, nobody wants me because this one place we didn't fit, or I didn't fit, So I think that's what really made me like way more confident, because I was like, you know what? They're the ones that are going to figure it out. I'm not interviewing somebody. The pressure's not on me. The pressure's on them, really. Right. And I kind of flipped the script a little bit on myself, and I just was like, just be honest, go in there.
That's a game changer, I feel.
Be very much yourself, you know, and just don't freak out about it. And I definitely was nervous for some of it, but.
And that was something that like I really appreciated when I interviewed, because I remember Sydney saying like they are really looking for a candidate that would fit the culture here, and like everything else could be taught. So I was like, okay, like, well, that makes me feel better. So just like be Christian, like be yourself. And it like that really, obviously it benefited me because I like got the job, but I'm happy to hear that was your kind of sort of your experience as well. Like you just being yourself, and then like you were the fit for that puzzle. Like I guess you completed the puzzle here. But yeah, I had a similar experience as far as that. But to go back to the actual conversation that we were having as far as like what causes like stress for me.
Yeah.
Having like all these things but no like timeline on like when they should be done. That's something that I've struggled with like working here. So like we have like our task and Zoho projects, and so there are like deadlines that they're due by, but then I'm like, right, but like what's priority? And so even just figuring out like what's like what I should prioritize has caused me so much stress. And it's like just ask like what should you focus on, or just like because having it on the computer for me, I'm like I can see it, but for some reason like writing things down like in a list has helped me. Like it's been a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
So actually like seeing what it is like I have to do, but then like writing it down for myself so that I can like check it off. I don't know, it's something about like putting pen to paper, like the old people
Well,
say.
you know, they say, I don't know what percent it is, but my teachers used to tell me in school, in college, they would say, we advise not writing notes on your computer because if you handwrite them, you are like, I don't know what percent, but you're much more likely to remember and be able to memorize things, and it keeps it in your head too. So I think, and that comes down to if you're really more of a visual person, which I'm like 100%, I have to see it be done. I have to see it. Somebody
see the process.
I have to see somebody do it for me to like understand it. Like I have to see you physically be like, all right, you're gonna do this. That's why like I learn everything from videos.
Yeah,
like YouTube saved my life so many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely I like writing it down for sure.
That has really helped me even at the beginning of the year, which I took on so many new projects. So I was already working here, which that was kind of like, I already had a routine for like getting up, getting ready for work, and then getting to work and whatever. Like after that was just like kind of whatever. But then when I decided to get a puppy, which I got the puppy like the day, like I knew that I was getting a puppy the day before I got it. So it wasn't something that I'd been planning for. I just like, my mom texted me on a Friday and was like, we're going to pick up a dog on Saturday. Well, tomorrow. I'm like, okay, well, I'm a new dog mom. So I started that, and then I started real estate school, and then I decided to be a CASA volunteer. So it was just so much newness at one time, and I didn't know in what order to like prioritize what. And so there was just so like my first like 3 days, I would like go home and like cry because it was just like so much like stress, and I was just overwhelmed. And I wasn't like, to me, I'm like, what's the most efficient way to get everything done? And I didn't know because it was all new. Like it was literally all new. Like I was doing everything at this, like starting everything new at the same time. But now I have like my planner and everything else that I use to like help me like stay on track. And then also just self-realization, me realizing that I was really doing that because it was more of a comparison thing. Because although I'm doing a lot, I felt like I wasn't doing enough. So not even knowing, I was comparing myself to other people that I like see around me. And I was talking to my little sister one day, and I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. But I was telling her like I just felt stressed out because I started so much new stuff, and we were just having a conversation, and she goes, to me, it sounds like you were doing that because you were comparing yourself to other people. And then she goes, get off social media. And so I went to hang out with another friend, and I was telling him about the conversation that me and my sister had. And he goes, no, I would agree with her. Like, it sounds to me that you were doing all that because of comparison. So I would also say get off social media. So that's something that I've had to do recently. But I realized even social media causes a lot of stress for me, like anxiety and like anxiousness, because I'm constantly like, okay, well, I'm doing all these things, but I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that one thing. So how do I like incorporate that as well? It's like, girl, just focus on this. Like this is your placement. This is your time, not that one thing. So that has caused a lot of like stress for me. But then like even working out, like going back to that has like helped a lot, because that's like one thing that I
Sorry.
that's one thing that I look forward to every day, that I'm like, okay, well, I know like at least I can get my mind off of all these other things and just focus on this pain. Just focus on like being uncomfortable here, because really when you're like working out, you really have no time to think about anything else, because
it's just like physical pain versus other places mental pain.
Yeah, it's like I really like I just have to focus on like, because for me, something that I've realized when I'm like learning a new anything, I want to do it like as perfect as possible. So with working out, like your form is super important so you don't hurt yourself. So I'm like blocking everything else out, like watching whoever's like demonstrating, because I'm like, I want to do it. Obviously, I'm new at it, so it's not going to be just like them. They're professionals, but I'm like, I want to do it as closely. Like I want it to look as close as possible to the way that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so that helps me a lot too, because I'm like not thinking about anything else. I'm literally just focusing on, which I overcompensate or I do too much with that sometimes as well, and that causes stress, and I'm like not really enjoying the workout as much because I'm so focused on trying to do it perfectly. I'm like, so really I'm in my head all the time, like 24/7, and that causes a lot of stress, like getting out of your own head, which is something that I'm still learning how to do. But yeah, all those really, I just named a lot of things that cause me stress. And something that I've realized like recently is I actually am very socially, like, I guess I would say I'm socially awkward. I have social anxiety in certain situations, which is why a lot of the times I I'd much rather stay in my comfort zone, which that's not good at all. But then I'm like, well, I know I'm comfortable with these people. I like these people. And then I guess some of my experiences just like in life, just, high school, like the typical high school stuff. And then even like after that, it's like, I'd much rather like stay away from all that. So I'll just like stay here in this bubble, but that doesn't really help your self growth or like it doesn't help you at all pretty much in the long run, because you're playing it safe in a situation where like we're young, like we're 25. We shouldn't always play it safe. Like certain things, it's like obviously you shouldn't go running downtown like at nighttime. But like other things, like going to like social settings where you can like meet people and like, have new opportunities, you should never play it safe when it comes to being in situations like that, I feel. So getting out of learning to get out of my head and just like go for it is something that I'm still learning, because that in itself is number one on my list of stress. Like that causes probably the most stress for me in my life, which is strange because I talk so much. Like I can talk to, I was telling one of my friends yesterday, because I've heard you're nice but you're not friendly, or like you're friendly but you're not nice, like so vice versa. And I was like, maybe I'm just not friendly, but I'm really, really nice. And he goes, you're really, really nice. I was like, yeah, but it's just like the friendliness, or just like knowing how to like have conversation with random people, no, like that is, I don't care for it at all.
I definitely don't do it all the time, but I've kind of been, I guess back when I started going to Minnesota, and I've done it more since then, but I'll just do a thing where I'm pretending to be somebody else. Yeah. And I'm like pretending to be a really confident version of myself.
Do you have a name?
It's still me. No, it's not
okay.
like I'm
like, what's her name?
Well, it's like building off of myself, but giving myself a lot of confidence I don't have.
Mm-hmm. But it's funny because you do.
Yeah, it's like, it's weird. It's like I'm reaching in and finally like
it's like an alter ego.
Yeah.
It's an alter ego. Maybe I should create one. Do you think that you encourage other people to take care of themselves, or?
Yeah, I just encourage them how I would try to encourage myself.
Right.
And vice versa. I mean, sometimes I think, why am I so hard on myself? I would never treat my friends like this.
Right.
So yeah, it is frustrating sometimes, but patience is part of it, and some self-control, because you have to know the person, I think, too, sometimes to be able to advise them specifically on what they need. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't get why so many people come to me for advice. I'm like my friend yesterday was like my friends recently have been asking me what to text their boy or love interest, and I'm just like, I really Why me? Because I'm probably the most awkward out of all of you.
It's funny because I get the same quite often, but I can help someone. It's so much easier for me to like help other people with their situations than it is for me to actually like help myself. And 9 times out of 10, I know the answer. It's just like actually like executing it. So I'll happily help you execute whatever it is that like you're trying to do. But then like when it comes to myself, I'll sometimes like put that on the back burner because it is uncomfortable. Do I think that I encourage? I think that I try to encourage. I think I encourage people more with the way that they think. So I'm like, or maybe this, and this. Like, I try to like help people with their perspective. I actually have a sticky note on my desk that says, pretty much it says your perspective shapes the way that your reality is, which is true. Like
Perception
the way that
is reality.
Perception is reality. The way that you choose to look at a situation is what it's going to become in your life. So the way that you speak about situations, or the way that you speak to yourself, like that's how you're going to look at the situation. That's how you'll look at yourself. It's the same with people. The way that like you look at people, or it just really the way because we train our minds to listen or to think certain things. So like when you're being negative, you're literally training your mind to go into every situation in your life and you're going to be negative. Mm-hmm. So people, it's funny because on social media, like I see people that I know in real life that are like really negative, and like they post certain things and I'm like, like it sounds great, but like I know you in real life and you've literally everything that comes out of your mouth is negative, which is why you are the way that you are. And it's really as I would say it's simple as changing your mindset, but I know it's not that easy. Especially like when you've programmed yourself we're 25. So if you've been like this literally your whole life, it's not as simple as, just starting over and doing something different because you're having to go against what your normal is. But I try to encourage people first by like helping them, or just like helping them like see things from like a different lens, or even playing devil's advocate. Because sometimes
I have a bad habit of that.
Sometimes it's like, I will agree with what you're saying, but like, let's look at it from this lens. Like, how about we like look at it from like maybe this point of view? Even if I agree with what you're saying, it's like that just helps you like broaden your thought process and maybe like not think or just be like so dead set on like whatever it is that you think. Because sometimes we think we may think that we think something. It's like, that's not really what we think. Like, that's what we think. That sounds we think. That's what we think, but that's not really like what you think. And it sounds like silly, but like when you really sit back and think about that or ponder that thought, it's true. Like, where did this thought come from? Like, this isn't even and most thoughts that we have aren't original thoughts. So sitting back and like thinking for yourself and coming up with like these ideas or these concepts, I think it's been a game changer for me, like challenging things and not just going with what I was taught was correct. It definitely will change like the outcome of your life. Your perception will also change the outcome of your life. Like, so that's my spiel on that.
Yeah, definitely agree about that. Like going off of like, I love playing devil's advocate. Mm-hmm. It's mostly me. Like I catch myself doing this a lot, but I don't think it's in the sense of like I'm trying to frustrate my friends or anything like that. But again, for instance, going back to like one of my girlfriends is like having issues with this guy she's talking to or whatever, mm-hmm. girl or guy. And they'll just be frustrated and coming to me with what they said, what the other person said, like everything about the situation from their perspective. Mm-hmm. And then I think, okay, well, what if this person could be possibly thinking it about this way? Mm-hmm. Especially with guys, don't understand them at all.
Oh, they never think about things the way that we would.
Oh, not at all. And so for me, a lot of the time, I know that I want somebody else to kind of help me, because the main goal is just to make the situation better, right? It's not just to, again, thinking long term. So you don't want to say something that's super hurtful, but at the same time, like you don't want to waste your time or like be played.
There was once where I heard, or maybe it was me, I don't know, but the situation was we pretty much are all main characters. Like we're all main characters. Yeah. So like this is a movie and I'm the main character and everybody else around me are extras or whatever. Like I'm the main character. But when you look at it on the flip side, to you in your world, in your reality, you're the main character and I'm an extra or a whatever the correct term is, but that's like you have to think about that like when you're in situations most of the time, because you're thinking about it from like a selfish standpoint, and sometimes you really should be selfish. Sometimes it's okay to be selfish, but other times it's like you really do have to like consider like what the other person may be thinking, or like what the other person may be going through. Because I know as a woman, I'm going to speak for myself, a lot of the times, like for me, past relationships, it was like me reacting off like from a text message because I read into it the wrong way, and then it's as simple as like maybe he's having an off day, or maybe like you just read into it and like that's not really what he meant. So even like last week with one of my friends, piggybacking off of what you were talking about, but she was kind of upset because of like the text message thread between her and the guy that she was talking to. And even when I read it, like I could see what she was saying, like as far as like it being dry. But then I was like, well, how about like you call him, because text messages are like really it's hard to read what somebody could mean in a text message, for one. And two, it's like, check on him mentally. Like maybe he's being dry because mentally like he's not together, or like something's going on. So I think like taking a step back from being the main character of your movie, just taking a step back of being the main character of your movie, and like just being like a human being, like not always being like a movie star.
I'm remembering that other people are human beings too,
and they're main characters of their own movie. So people go through things, and I think it's like humbling yourself, because that's a humbling experience, like feeling the way that you feel and still like deciding to swallow whatever that is and checking on somebody else. That's very, very humbling, and it's hard. And I don't know many people that actually enjoy doing it. Some people are just naturally good at it, but for them, I don't know too many people that are just like naturally good at like swallowing how they feel to check on other people.
That's part of coping too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just not getting so caught up on emotions right away. Again, something I'm trying to work really hard on is having self-control and not reacting right away.
Yeah.
It's just like whenever like somebody would text me, and it'd be like back in the day when I didn't really talk to my parents very much, when I was going through between moving out and then where I am at now. But I would take like almost a whole day sometimes to reply.
Yeah.
Especially if it was a confrontational text, because I knew that whatever I was going to say, as soon as I saw that, was going to be honestly kind of inappropriate probably for the situation, but also it's just not something that I wanted to say, because I'm thinking long term now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how what I say finally realizing that what I say affects and can last with people because of how sensitive I am. I remember a lot of things people say to me. So just going back to, would I want someone to treat me like this?
Yeah.
I think if you take time, when you can, sometimes you have to react right away to situations. But if you can, just taking the time and getting like a fuller perspective and not just, how do I feel right now?
That's something
really
that I've been like working on, which it's been kind of like it's strange enough. Too much of anything can be bad. So even with that, like taking the time, that there has to be balance, taking the time to like pretty much accept things for what they are, and then like look at it from somebody else's perspective and not just like reacting. I do that so much now, and now people are like, you're so understanding, Christian, you're so, and I hate it now. Like now I hate being told that I'm understanding, because I'm like, that doesn't make your actions like okay. Like it's almost like I give people passes at this point in life. So I'm literally learning like where is that balance of like reacting and then being proactive and like listening and like really like thinking through your feelings before you just say anything. Like there is no balance for me there is no balance for me right now. I'm like learning it.
From my own experience of like being very insecure and then seeing how I act around people versus when I'm very confident in how I act around people, it's like I'm two different people. It's crazy.
So I think the last question that we have for today is, was there ever a breaking point in your health, and what did you do to get out of that?
Yeah, the situation I was in is a little embarrassing, but it's fine. I'll talk about it.
Okay.
So, I moved out of my parents' house very suddenly when I was like 21 or 22, And I had to find somewhere to live. So I had some friends. I lived with a couple different roommates. And then finally I got to the point where I couldn't find a roommate, but I had to move out of where I was living. And so I was looking, and I only had 2 weeks. So I was like on Facebook Market, all these places trying to look. And I finally found a place on Facebook Market, and I barely looked on the inside because it was, I don't know, I went by myself to go look at the house, and it was just 2 guys that met up with me, and I was sketched out. But the place seemed fine. Like, I didn't see anything that was crazy, and I also was desperate. Yeah. And so I went with that house, lived there from like November until I guess it was around March, and that was going into 2020. And so that's when COVID hit. Yeah. And I lost like money from not working. You know, I didn't have hardly any savings. Actually, none at all. And I was getting to the point where my parents and I were kind of getting back to good terms. Yeah. And one day I came home from work, and I was also at the point where I was actually like losing a lot of weight because I couldn't afford to buy like I couldn't afford like the amount of food I was eating before. Yeah. And I also was really anxious. So most of the time when I ate something, I would throw it up. And I came home to my house, and I felt like things biting me on my feet and my legs. And I realized, oh, I have fleas. Yeah. And it was the worst. Like, I wasn't in any kind of contract really for the house because it was really shady. Like, there was holes in the walls. Like, it was kind of hidden. Like, they had hid it from me. Okay. And then, you know, it was a month-to-month lease, but also I was at the point where I was so anxious, I didn't want to look for anywhere else. I was, like, comfortable-ish until the bugs set in. Yeah. And it was really from all the Highland cats because it was actually not really too far from here. It was between Olive and Highland. Okay. Right by the Highland Center.
I know what you're talking about.
It's like right across the street from there. I actually saw somebody moving in there the other day. I was like, oh, good luck.
Don't do it.
Good luck. Don't do it. I remember just being like, realizing what I was doing, which was I had scrubbed the floor with Dawn. Well, like I knew what to do to get rid of fleas, but I think that I don't remember like hours and hours of scrubbing pretty much. Yeah. And so like I just came to, and then I just started crying, and I just felt like I was totally alone. Like, there was nobody there that could help me. Like, it was COVID. I couldn't even have my friends come over and help me clean. Like, I just felt like the worst I've ever felt. And then suddenly I was just like, you know what? I don't know. I came to this kind of realization. And I felt, because ever since I've been at my parents' house, tried to avoid anything religious, tried to avoid anything to do with, I guess, having a relationship with God, just because I wanted to avoid it. It made me feel pain because of my family and like the church I was in. Like, I just came to a terrible place where I just felt totally alone, and it was a hard month, but I'm really grateful because I had people to support me, and so my family ended up helping me out, and that's kind of where our relationship, they were just like, you just come live with us. Yeah. And ever since then, it was so much better. It's crazy. I never thought I could have this kind of relationship with my family.
Yeah. I feel like in situations like that you went through, that's when you realize, like, okay, like, they're not as awful as I thought they were. Like,
they were right about a lot of things, too.
But then, like, when you're that young, like, there is no telling you anything. So you kind of have to, like, bump your head. Some people, me, I have to bump my head. And I think my mom's, like, kind of, like, learning that, like, she'll tell me, and then I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then I like go and I do it, and then I'm like, I feel awful. But then she's always there. And I know that she's always going to be there. She's always there to, like, you know, support me through the whole getting up process, and like not necessarily starting over, but like, you know, picking up where I left off. So I think I've probably had a bunch of situations where like my health, mental, physical, like kind of like went downhill. And usually for me, it's like more of like emotional, because I am so willing to like give to other people, and I don't really focus on me. So usually for me, if I'm like going through something really hard and I have to like start, or I'm like picking myself back up, it's usually like more of like my mental health. And I think for me, there was like a breaking point for me. I think I was just in bed one day, like super upset, and I'd been upset for a while, but like I didn't really know why, or like what it was that I was going through. Or, like, I wasn't even aware of like the feelings that I felt. I just knew that I was like upset, but I couldn't like pinpoint like what the actual like emotions were. And so I remember randomly like going through like the directory in like Shreveport Bossier looking for a therapist, and that same day like just like signing up for therapy, going to therapy, and like sitting on the couch like crying. And she was like, okay, well that's like new, like for a first therapy session, like that's really yeah. I was like opening up like immediately, but it was just something that like I knew I needed for a long time.
It was like built up.
It definitely was built up, just to like lay in bed and like not want to like move, and then like just like crying, and then just my only outlet being like I need to go talk to a stranger. And she didn't even talk. I literally just started crying. Like it was just like I don't know if it was like the space that I was in, like physically the space that I was in, or I don't really know what it was. Like even to this day, I've never really thought about it or examined it. But like that was like a moment for me where I just knew I have to do something. And for me, it was like I have to go to therapy. Like this is something that I need for myself, because I can't keep like fixing or trying to fix things or fix people, or listen to like all these other, like be everybody else's outlet when I don't have an outlet of my own. So for me, it was finding a therapist and like going to therapy, like to get help, because I needed it. And that's also, there's like a stigma there, like with going to therapy, like, oh, like you're quote unquote crazy or like XYZ, but no, you just, yeah, everybody does. Issues. And then it's just like nice to have some like an unbiased opinion, like someone that has no idea who you are. Like, because sometimes like you can talk to your friends about things, but like you don't really tell them everything, because like they know your parents, or they know your sister, or they know like your significant other. And like at the end of the day, no matter how understanding somebody is, like they can't help. It's like human to like look at somebody differently when you know like they're like a terrible human being, whereas like a therapist, like they'll probably never come in contact with like whoever you're going to them to like vent about. So there's like,
they're non-biased.
Yeah, and there's like something beautiful about that whole situation, like you literally just being able to be like 100% vulnerable to somebody, whether they're only a stranger in the beginning because you don't know them, but like the more you go, it's like you build a relationship with them, and there's beauty in being able to like be vulnerable, and like so that you can be 100%. Like you have to be not necessarily empty, but you have to like open up those wounds and like really just like dig through all those things so that you can be a full person, like a well-rounded full person at the end of the day. So that's like my experience with it.
Well, I think with a lot of things, like even when I think about my parents' religion, you know, it's like I had to go through things for me to think, what do I want to do to help me cope with stuff? Yeah. I never want to be in a situation again where I feel like that.
Yeah.
Like, so I need to learn tools to know how to cope. But I think for so long, I didn't, well, for one, it started off with not knowing it was me that had to pull myself out of it. Mm-hmm. Then it got to the point where I realized that, but how do I do that? What are the tools? What is that in a practical sense? Yeah. People are just like, oh, well, you just need to feel better about yourself. But by doing what? And I think having a therapist, it's such a huge part of that, because they're not going to, there's no chance they're going to go and tell everybody what you're going through.
Yeah, literally legally they can't. So.
Yeah, legally they can. Thank goodness. But yeah, I think that's really awesome too, that you stepped out and did that and put yourself out of the comfort zone. I'm still trying to like gear myself up to find a therapist, but also like expensive.
Yeah. Luckily I was still on my mom's insurance, so I used her insurance. But okay, so last thing, you said something about like practical tips. Like what are like one or two like practical tips that you would, or tools that you would give someone, or tips that you would give someone like needing to take care of themselves or like pull themselves? Well, one, it starts with realizing like it's you that like has to pull yourself out of it, but like how?
Well, I think it also depends on like what is the problem, like what specifically. Everyone has different things, but I think that the core, a lot of people are genuinely just insecure about themselves and always comparing to other people. So I think it starts off with you being nice to yourself by treating yourself well, you know, like eating well, going through your routine. If you need to build up a routine, makes you feel better. You give yourself little goals too that have to do with your spirituality or the way you want to speak or talk to other people.
Right.
I think, well, because spirituality is dealing with yourself and then other people, you know.
Yeah.
But just being kind and like easing into things too. Like just like running, you're not going to go out and run a marathon the first day you go running, right? It's like you'll kill yourself. And so to me it's just like being kind, taking days off, knowing when you need a mental break or a physical break.
Yeah.
Trying to read yourself. Take time to reflect and meditate. And just like see where you're at. Am I feeling bad today? Like, writing, oh my gosh, writing stuff down.
Definitely a tool.
It's such a big tool. Just getting down the things that maybe you feel negatively about yourself. It's good to write it down because it kind of feels like you're able to grab the cloud, look at it, and then just like let it go.
I've actually done that before. I wrote a letter to myself, but I addressed it to the person that I wanted it to go to. And so I just wrote it as if I were talking to them, and I like put it in an envelope, like put the address on it and everything, put a stamp on it as if I were literally going to mail it to them. And I mean, I never did, but that helped me a lot as far as like getting past whatever the situation was and getting out what I wanted to say to that person that I felt had wronged me or XYZ. Or so writing is definitely a great tool that I would recommend as well. So that's it. I really enjoyed you on on your first episode, not the first episode. Did you have fun?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Okay, well, until next time.
It,
It's so easy to talk about yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So until next time, we'll see you all on the next episode. Thank you.